David Blanton, clicker away. Woo! All right, so I've got 65 slides and 45 minutes, or I'm sorry, 35 minutes. Housing market forecast for the second half of the year. So guys, most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening, and great agents can explain what's happening. One of the things that we are tasked with is taking this information back to our clients and helping them understand, right? In the world of information, our primary job is shifted from access to houses to being able to explain what's going on. So when we look at the basically the 7 principles of influence by Robert Cialdini, you'll notice that authority is up there, commitment, consistency, social proof, and consensus. Those are the 4 things that this will help you do. So first of all, as an authority in the industry, that helps build your influence. Nobody wants to work with someone. I won't say nobody wants to work with someone, but the more that we know, the more influence that we have. Does that make sense? You ever had a client not take your advice? You might not have demonstrated clearly enough that you're an authority in the subject matter, right? Commitment and consistency. By knowing this information, you're showing commitment and consistency. Social proof, we're going to be going over what's going on in the market, which is social proof when you're trying to influence your client's decision making. And then consensus, again, what's everybody doing? What's the market looking like? Home sales have lingered at 30-year lows. Anybody feeling that at all? 30-year lows since 70 million more Americans live in the country now compared to 3 decades ago, it is inevitable that sales will rise in coming years. Inventory will grow steadily from more home construction and various life-changing events. Will require people to trade up, trade down, or move to another location. That's Lawrence Yun, chief economist at NAR. I like to add extra syllables to words because it makes me sound smarter. So in 2024, we're projected the average is 4.9. Just to put that in context, we did 4.755 million in 2023. So we're basically just a little above where we were in 2023. You all felt the brakes come on in the late part of 2022. They've stayed on through 2023, and they're still a little bit on in 2024, but we are starting to see a normalized market. The market is an interesting point with rising inventory and lower demand. You guys have probably seen that, right? Supply and demand movement suggest easing home price appreciation upcoming months. Notice that says easing home price appreciation. It does not say price capitulation or depreciation, right? So it may feel different because we're not acceleratedly appreciating, but we're still not going backwards. In upcoming months, inevitably more inventory in a job-creating economy will lead to greater home buying, especially when mortgage rates descend, right? We're all waiting for those rates to drop. So home price forecast. Notice that nobody is forecasting prices to go down. The average of all 7, Fannie Mae, HPES, MBA, Goldman Sachs, NAR, Zillow, and Freddie Mac, the average is 2.8%, okay? One thing that seems pretty solid is that home prices are going to continue to go up, and the reason is that we don't have housing inventory. Jessica Loutz, Deputy Chief Economist at NAR, right? You guys, how many have seen this slide before? When I am meeting with a client, or when I'm talking to someone who basically says, I think I'm going to wait for the crash, I show them this slide. Because if you notice, it starts in 1970, the green, that is when we had 4 consecutive years of record-setting number of units, meaning that houses were coming out of the ground. And that last green line is 2008. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but right about that time, the market kind of fell. And the reason why the market fell was because we had a surplus of homes. And the reason why we're not going to, I don't know the future. I'm pretty confident, though, that we won't see anything like 2008 again, because if you look at the basically the aftermath of that, builders were going out of business. Banks were not making loans at the same rate. We had 14 straight years below the 52-year average. It's not on the slide, but Lawrence Yun also said that we are creating more families than we are houses. So every year, more families are created than houses are built. So I don't know if you can do that math, but we're going to have a shortage of homes for the foreseeable future. Buyer's market, some of you remember this wonderful time when we could show 60 houses, and some of our clients wanted to look at 60 houses because there was so much selection. And this is months of inventory, and if you don't understand how months of inventory works, it's basically, all it is an absorption rate. If no more houses come on the market, and we sell houses at the same rate that we're selling them, then all of the houses will be bought up or sold within X number of months. And you can see that we're right around 4 months, 3.9. That's national, that is not local. Local, we are less than this. Now notice that a neutral market is 6 to 7 months. We are solidly in the seller's market. Now we're not in 2020, which was ridiculous, but we're still solidly in the seller's market. That makes sense? It only feels like a balanced market because we're used to the ridiculous. All right, so where are mortgage rates going? You guys, we never know exactly where mortgage rates are going. I remember for the longest time when I was in the industry, 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, everybody kept saying mortgage rates they can't stay this low. They were right, they got lower. Like they just can't stay this low. And they were right, we were going to hit 2.5, right? And so we never know exactly how it's going to go. And the Fed is actually meeting today and tomorrow. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. And so we'll actually see a little bit of information coming out today or tomorrow about what that expectation will be. Now, the Fed does not control mortgage rates. They're tied to the 10-year Treasury. However, they do have influence on them. Actual mortgage rates, that's where we are in the projected. If you get down, we're almost to 6% by the end of 2025. Now, if you were at this presentation last year, we were going to be in the mid-5s by this time. So take this all with a grain of salt. Take this all with a grain of salt. This is when will the Federal Reserve cut the funds rate, and this would be the first cut. And so we have different opinions. It's kind of interesting. We'll see today at MUFG, which I don't even know what that stands for. I can come up with something, but I don't think it'd be appropriate. Nope. So we'll see today, today and tomorrow, if they were right. Everybody else is or not everybody, but most people are expecting September, some in December, one in November, and then we see in 2025 as well. So we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And to be perfectly honest, I don't want it to be cut too quick because low rates drive inflation. And so the whole thing about cheap money is it makes everything cheaper, which makes everything cost more. And so I don't really want it to come way, way, way down. I don't ever want to see 2.5% again. I don't ever want to see 3% again. The lowest I would like to see is 4%. That's, unless I'm refinancing, and then we can have a different discussion. All right. When it comes to the real estate forecast for the next 5 years, I'm cautiously optimistic. I believe we're going to see a lot of ebb and flow over the next 5 years, some highs, some lows. I love how precise he is. But overall, a healthy market. Prices should continue to rise, though more slowly. We're seeing that. And buyers might enjoy more options as inventory expands. But remember, real estate is profoundly local. We'll get to the local part towards the end. What happens on a national scale can manifest differently in your backyard, right? Depending on where you are in the country, depending on where you are in Georgia, things feel different. Heck, depending on where you are in Metro Atlanta, things feel different, right? So that's Dennis Shirshkov, adjunct professor of economics, City University of New York, right? This is basically describing a normal market. That makes sense? Yep. We've had appreciation like this for a really, really long time. And that is not sustainable, as we've seen. And so now it's just going to probably do a little bit of this on the way up. All right. How will the 2024 election affect the real estate market? Have you guys heard, like, this is an election year. I know probably some of you are like, I haven't heard anything about that. So this might be surprising to you. And so how do you guys think that the election is affecting real estate?
They're going to wait till after the election.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to wait till after the election?
Really fast before the election.
Yeah.
They're going to buy really fast before the election? Okay. Anybody else?
My experience, every election cycle, there is a cut before the election.
And by the way, Bob's seen all of them.
I've seen a lot of them.
Sorry, Bob. Bob's a good sport. So what's interesting about it is this year we're probably seeing a little bit more of a pullback or a pause in the market than we've seen it historically. Because historically you start to see more of a pause around October, November. Right now, though, with it being as contentious as it is, there are people that are just kind of like, they don't know what to think, and they're kind of stuck. I was just talking with a buyer on Sunday, and they were asking me, what do I think the election is going to do to prices? Well, prices are going to go up regardless of who goes into office, because it's going to uncork the market.
I think part of the hesitation right now is that there's no consumer confidence because the two opposing sides are so polar opposite in their approach to this. That's part of why people are kind of.
Well, and both sides stand to gain by demonizing the other side, right? Yeah, absolutely. Presidential election years affect the national housing market and mortgage rates through three interrelated channels: uncertainty, policy expectations, and consumer confidence. This is kind of what Bob was just touching on. This is because consumers may choose to postpone major purchases or sales until they gain greater confidence in the country's direction. So, by the way, why should that be important to the people that you're working with right now? How could this be an objection handler?
I don't know if this is what you're going for, but I've told buyers, this is a great time to buy because there's not nearly as many people competing with you for potential homes. And if the interest rates do go down, you can refinance later. Is that anywhere near where you're going with this?
Well, it is. And this ties specifically to the election. And so, you're thinking about waiting until after the election. Guess what? Millions of other people are as well. And so do you want to buy now before all those people get into the market, or do you want to wait until they get in the market? Your choice. I'll be here. I'll work. I'm not retiring in the next, 6 months.
Fortune favors the bold.
Fortune favors the bold. Absolutely. All right. Usually home sales are unchanged compared to a non-election year, with the exception being November. And we'll see in a second, it's October, November. In an election year, November is slower than normal. As I mentioned, because this is more contentious than other elections that we've seen, and there is such an interesting dynamic in terms of candidates dropping out, candidates coming on board, candidates that have been convicted of felonies. We're just seeing unprecedented times. We're seeing so much more volatility basically in the political spectrum that's probably causing people to hold off even more. Does that make sense? All right, so this is historically, statistically, what we see. In non-presidential election years, we still see that change from October to November. We see a drop 9.8%. Okay, that's because we have the seasonality of real estate. Anybody who's in real estate knows that around October 31st until January 1st, we have less transactions, right? You don't have to have less, but there are less transactions. And so in presidential election years, looking from 1963 through 2019, we're looking at negative 15%. So it drops about 5% more, 5.2%. All right, home sales went up, after 9 of the last 11 presidential elections. Now, I think we can kind of throw out 2021 because that was one of the unicorn years, right? But even looking back before that, we should, statistically, if history repeats itself, we'll have more home sales next year than we do this year, right? There will be more opportunity next year than we have right now. An election year doesn't alter the price trend that is already happening in the market. And so we can actually see that in most elections, we actually see a price increase. Again, we're going to throw out 2021, but you can see how absurd 2020 to 2021 was, right? You went from 296,700 as the median price to 350,700 as the median price. That's insane. That's almost 20%. All right. We also see that new home prices also go up after the election. And again, we're going to disregard 2020, but even in the other years, we see that they go up there as well. In December following an election and in the following year, the sales that are lost during November are recovered. It isn't that consumers say, I'm nervous and I never want to buy. They say, I'm nervous. Let's just wait to see how things play out. Right? So if you're feeling that a little bit of a squeeze right now, don't worry. After the election, there are going to be more people buying, which is something that you want to convey to your potential buyers right now and help them understand that, by the way, I understand you want to wait. Everybody else does too. Now, do you want to buy now before everybody else does? Or do you just want to wait and compete and pay too much? Right? All right. Mortgage rates decreased leading up to 8 of the last 11 presidential elections. Yeah, we'll just move on from there. So we'll see what that looks like, right? For most Americans, election results will have little direct effect on their income and therefore should not significantly impact their decision to buy or sell a home, right? I mean, what's funny is regardless of who's in the White House, we're pretty much the control of our own destiny for the most part. And we're going to determine how much money we make. And most Americans are just like us in that regard. And so it's not really going to matter, right? It's not going to change it's not going to significantly impact their decision to buy or sell a home. NAR settlement, get your mindset right. So I know some of you are here, you're going to stay through the mastermind. Let's talk a little bit about the NAR settlement. First of all, the first thing that this is clever real estate, they ask, have you ever negotiated the commission rate with a real estate agent? 70% said no, right? Never negotiated. What I really like though is 13% said yes, and I didn't get a reduction. So just because commissions are negotiable and they negotiate, you don't have to lower your commission. You just can't make it out that there is a standard commission, right? I think we're all aware of that. 17%, yes, I got a reduced commission. I love this slide. Awareness of the NAR settlement is relatively low. 63% of the people that responded to the survey hadn't even heard about the NAR settlement. Almost 2/3, almost 2 out of every 3 people that you see or talk to has no idea that this is going on. By the way, if you look at the right-hand box there, remember that our respondents, because this is 1,000 watt, our respondents here have both bought and sold in the past 5 years. They are experienced, vested real estate consumers with a stake in the game. That 63% of them had not even heard of this settlement. News is remarkable. I want you to carry that with you, because if you're reluctant to have conversations because you're worried, well, if you talk to 3 people, 2 of them ain't gonna have any idea anyway. That makes sense.
And the one that does won't have it right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like how are we gonna let that fear show up? Are we gonna not talk to people, or are we gonna go talk to at least 3 people and know that 2 won't have any idea what's going on? All right, so will the NAR settlement impact whether you will use a real estate agent to sell a home? So almost 50%, there's no impact. Somewhat more likely, 16%, somewhat less likely, 15%, much more likely, 11%, and much less likely, 9%. So if you do that math, only 24% are basically less likely to use a real estate agent based on the NAR settlement. That makes sense? Half, no change whatsoever. But notice that more likely 16% and much more likely 11%, that is 27% of the people, over a fourth of the people are more likely to use an agent. Half, no change. 1/4, more likely. 23% less likely, 24%. Okay? Again, I think that when you start looking at the statistics, it starts to give you a little bit of a different feel for how this is actually going to show up. We've gone from a speed market to a skills market. If you can make this transition and develop your skills, you're going to be just fine. Gary Keller. So I've heard of this guy. He's the co-founder and chairman of the board, Keller Williams Realty. What does that say to you? You don't have to be the first, you have to be the best. What else does that say to you?
Adjust to the market.
adjust to the market.
I'm very happy about this.
This says that I'm very happy about this.
I mean, this is gonna create, more of an impetus to get really into your business.
What does impetus mean?
Motivation.
So, I'm sorry, I was just,
I didn't give up.
I enjoy I enjoy our witty banter.
Yes.
So the thing about it is for a minute, from 2020 until 2022 and a half, the real secret to success was showing up and showing up quickly. Now we have to show up prepared. Prepared to have the discussions, prepared to convey information to our clients that maybe we didn't have to convey in the past. Now we should have been conveying it all along, but maybe we just didn't have to because they were like, where do I sign? Let's go buy a house. That makes sense? But we have to shift out of that into having a skills-based market. And the basically the agents that have the more skills, yeah, that's what I said. The agents that know what to say, how to say it, and can convey not just value, but how everything works best to their clients, they're the ones that are going to have their unfair share. Make sense? All right. Which statement best represents your opinion about the issue in the trial and the trial outcome? Again, this is 1,000 watt. It's a survey. The respondents, 3% say real estate agents are being attacked wrongly, and this trial verdict was wrong. Further investigation showed that 3% has a real estate license. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if they pull those people out or not. But if you've looked at any of the Facebook pages, the masterminds, this is grossly unfair. The National Association of Realtors and big real estate companies are finally facing consequences for ripping off home buyers and sellers with excessive commissions and fees. But 74%, nearly 3/4, real estate agents who work with buyers will now have to negotiate how they are compensated directly with those buyer clients. And this makes sense to me. Now, guys, understand that we will negotiate our fee with the buyer, and we can still ask the seller to pay it. Right? We can still ask the seller to pay it. I don't know if any of you guys have ever negotiated closing costs because your buyer didn't have the money to basically get into the house unless they had closing costs. It's the same thing. It's really not going to be much different than that. Okay? 76%, it is worth paying a real estate agent to help you buy a home because it is a big, complex purchase requiring the expert guidance of a professional. So 3/4 believe that they need us. 24%, it really isn't necessary to hire a real estate agent to help you buy a home because all homes for sale are online and you can just work with the agent who is selling the home, the listing agent. Right? No, I will tell you, I don't really think that this has changed much since the settlement. I think this is kind of what we were up against the whole time. That makes sense? I don't think that's really changed. I think it's just we want to find the 76% and not worry about the 24%. Because there are always going to be people that choose not to do business with us. And that's okay. We just have to find enough people to do business with us that we can achieve our goals. If you were selling your house right now, which of the following statements would make more sense to you? You do not have to compensate the agent who represents a buyer, but you may want to, because it motivates more agents to find a qualified buyer and also reduces the cash a buyer needs to purchase your home, which may mean that they are more likely to offer you the price you want. 50.4, you should not offer to compensate the agent who represents a buyer because that agent should get paid directly by their own client. This will reduce the total commission you pay, but may make it harder for some buyers to afford your home. By the way, the mastermind after this meeting today is going to kind of cover how do we get the bottom people to the top. That makes sense, right? By the way, this is a challenge that we're going to have. We need to acknowledge that challenge and face it head on. We don't want to be avoidant. We don't want to stick our head in the sand, right? And we need to understand that we can get the people at the bottom, probably at least half of those people up to the top with the right scripts and dialogues. By the way, I'm not supposed to say scripts. The right conversations and dialogues. I don't know if you know this or not. The National Association of Realtors does not want us using the word scripts. Anybody heard that yet? And the reason why they do not want us using the word scripts is because it conveys that we are manipulating our clients into doing something they wouldn't otherwise do. And I know for myself, I've sold many a house with just saying the right thing. They didn't even want the house. I'm like, I got you. All right, if you were hiring a real estate agent to help you buy a home right now, which of the following payment options would you most likely choose? Would you be most likely to choose? Pay the agent an hourly rate of $100 per hour to complete just the task I need them to perform. And that's 14%. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of rumbling here.
Everybody's like,
So that's 14%. That's, I don't know if you guys know how math works, but that's less than a majority. Like everybody knows that, right? Okay. Pay the agent a flat fee of $10,000 to provide any services needed during my home buying process. That's $10,000 up front, by the way. Whether it closes or not, they're stroking me a check for $10,000. I mean, that's not the worst thing, especially if it's a $200,000 house. But anyway, pay the agent a fee equal to 2.5% of the purchase of the home I purchased with no fee payable if I eventually decide not to buy. Notice 2/3 of the respondents chose that one. Chose that one. Why do you think that is? There's no risk. Somebody over here said something as well. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
just like today.
So the reality of it is, I've had a lot of clients that I wish they would have just stroked me a check for $10,000 right up front because they never bought anything. That makes sense? So yeah, 34% of people would take that opportunity, either an hourly rate or a $10,000 flat fee. The majority of people still want to keep our regular transaction, what we're used to. Does that make sense? Part of helping buyers understand that is the conversations that we're having around that when we're presenting the buyer brokerage agreement. All right, home sales, percentage of distressed properties. You'll see we're still well below the 4% that we were at prior pandemic or pre-pandemic. When you start seeing the headlines of distressed sales, foreclosures, double. Yeah, they're doubling from nothing. Does that make sense? Like, we have to look historically to understand that we're not seeing anything like 12, 13, 14, all the way out to 2020. We're still not to that level yet. And for a while, people were saying it's because they had the moratorium on foreclosures. And I understand that. But we don't have that anymore. So that's not even a consideration. Everybody follow along with that? Okay, buyer demand. So the showing index still remains above pre-pandemic levels. So 168.6, this is showing times showing index. I searched all over the internet to see how they calculate it. And apparently it is a trade secret because I can't find how they calculate this. But they do track the showings in the industry. And you can see prior to the pandemic, we were at 136.2. We actually have more foot traffic right now than we had pre-pandemic. Mortgage rates, we've already touched on this. We're at around 6.86, and that's not current. That was all the way back in like the 3rd week of May, I believe. And the mortgage credit availability. So this is another slide that I like to show my clients when they talk about a bubble. Because the higher that this is, the mortgage credit availability index, the higher that number is, the easier it is to get money. Now, if you go back and you were to overlay, if you looked at the slide we had at like 4 or 5 in, that showed you the surplus of homes, and you were to overlay it right here, guess where the surplus of homes were going to be? And the mortgage companies had to figure out a way that we could keep the economy going and make loans to sell all these houses that we're building. Because everybody gets a house. It was Oprah Winfrey before Oprah Winfrey, right? Well, now, after the foreclosure crisis, we go all the way down to around 100. We're at 94.1 right now. This and the fact that we don't have enough homes are what's going to keep us out of a major recession in terms of real estate. Because our interest rates doubled, more than doubled in a single year for the first time in the history of our country, and yet we still didn't have price capitulation. Prices still didn't come down. They just didn't go up as fast, right? All right, This is all of FMLS. You'll see that the median sales price is 407,500. Now, if you look at the peaks and valleys, you can see some seasonality in real estate. Right now, we are above June of last year by 3.2%, and you can see that that is the highest sales price, highest median sales price ever, right? Ever. Right here, we have 12,087 new listings coming on the market. That's all of FMLS. That is in June. That's up 9% from June of 2023. Here we have homes for sale. We actually have a 50% increase in inventory. 50.7. We could round that up to 51% increase of inventory. That's all of FMLS, not just local, but all of FMLS since June of 2023. Right? Now, that is, what's funny is if you remember, this is still a seller's market. We were in a ridiculous seller's market. Now we're just in a pretty good seller's market, right? We're up 50.7%. That actually is good for sellers and buyers because it's starting to normalize the market. The market. If you're a buyer, you have an opportunity to go find the house that you want, negotiate a reasonable deal. And that might not mean a bunch off the price that we're going to see here in a second, because list to sell is still around 100%. What it means, though, is you can have due diligence. You might be able to get an inspection and ask for some repairs. You might be able to do something like have an appraisal contingency or some nonsense like that, right? We're back to a normal market. We can actually do normal things. Pending sales were down 2.6% off of June of 2023. Again, we can all feel that. Closed sales, we see that we're down 13.2% from 2023. However, if we go back to pre-pandemic, you can see we're actually a good bit off of that June as well, right? In fact, we're more off of that June than we were last year, because that was 9,085. So we're almost 23% lower now than we were then. And so we can feel that. We can feel that. Median days on market are 15. It takes 15 whole days to sell a house now. Hey, this is ridiculous. I got my bills to pay. I put the sign in the yard yesterday. I need my check. Guys, this is ridiculous, or incredibly, I won't say ridiculously, this is still incredibly low, and yet it's 36.4% up because it was less than 10 days, June of 2023. Does that make sense? All right. Median cumulative days on market. What's the difference between days on market and cumulative days on market? Okay.
Well,
like if it, yeah, if it listed before, if it goes off under contract, it's like, oh.
Yeah, so this is just based on the listing where it's sold. This is based on the listing where it's sold and previous listings if there were any, right? So sometimes the CDOM and the DOM are going to be the exact same because it was only listed once. And sometimes houses will be listed, they'll expire. Dario will go list them and then sell them, right? And then we have combined days on market. All right, 3.6 months supply of homes. What's a balanced market or a neutral market? 6 to 7. We're at 3.6. We're lower than the national average. The national average is around 3.8, 3.9. We're at 3.6. We're still strongly in a buyer's market.
Seller's market.
Thank you. I was testing Bob. Actually, I let my mind wander. I have ADHD, and I was thinking about when I got into the industry in 2011, we had a strong buyer's market, and we had like 13, 14 months worth of inventory. Just to put that into a little bit of a perspective, right? All right. This is the average percent of last list price. So this is after a price reduction. We're still at 97.3%. Okay? And this is average. If you look at the median, I meant to do the median as well. The median is actually still 100%. And the difference between average and median is average is you add all the numbers up and then you divide. Median is you pick the middle number. So the middle number is still 100%. Just want you to be clear on that. Average percent of last original price, 98.8%. Okay? Again, that's average. All right, so now all this is the office area. It says entire MLS area. Oh, this is average price per square foot, sorry. And I think the next slide is the one that starts to talk about our office area. $208 per square foot. Again, if you look at the trend, we're selling things at a higher dollar per square foot than at any point ever, right? Median showings to pending are 7. What's interesting about that is it's down 22% from what it took in June of last year to sell a house. So you're going to sell your house in 7 showings as opposed to, I think it's 9 last year, right? Days on market is up, but the number of showings are down. Kind of an interesting look at that. All right, so this is our office area, and I will click through these because we're right out of time. We're up 13.7% over a year ago. That's median sales price. Now, median sales price can be a little bit not confusing, but basically it can be a little bit misleading because median sales price doesn't mean that all houses went up 13.7%. It just means that the prices of the houses that sold went up 13.7%. But it still is a pretty positive indicator as far as value is concerned. We have 719 new listings coming on the market. That's an increase of 5.7% of June of last year. We have 1,148 homes to sell. That's an increase of 44%. So less than all of FMLS.
I just want to clarify, so do you mean, is that Hall and Gwinnett County?
That's a great question. For this particular, it's the market stats. So if you go into FMLS, one of the widgets that we have on that homepage is the market stats. I could not put in more than one county. And so what I did was I dropped a pen and I created 270 square miles because that's as big of a sample size as it would allow, which sounds bigger than it is.
Okay, but it's pretty much.
Yeah, it's just right in our area. That makes sense? All right, pending sales. We're down 1.3%. We're at 474. Median days on market, we're at 9. That's actually equal to where we were in June of 2023.
I wish. I'm not experiencing that.
So median means middle, right? There are gonna be
Outliers. I'm on.
You're over here. You're over here. All right, fair enough. Maybe we need to have a pricing conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Median cumulative days on market. I forgot to put this in, but you can see it's right at 10. It's just a little bit up from where we were last year. By the way, if you have a house that's been on the market for 45, 50, 60 days, might you want to have this conversation?
Yep. Oh, we do.
Oh, I'm not saying you don't. I'm not saying you don't. I'm sorry. That wasn't supposed to be like an attack. That's just like a general statement,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and it can be even more impactful if we pull the subdivision that we're selling in and we say, hey, everybody else's house that's come on the market at the same time as ours or after ours is already sold. We're the only one holding out. So is our price selling their houses or is it selling our house? Right? But that's how you use data to have that conversation. And I'm sure you do that. I'm sure you do that. All right, median cumulative days on market, month supply of homes, we're at 2.9% in our area. So less than three months. Hyper local, we have even fewer than all of Metro Atlanta, and it is up 52.6%. It is up 52.6% from June of last year.
That's a remarkable stat. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why.
Well, it's up 50% and we're still so low.
Still such a seller's market.
Any of these guys that you talk to that do any projections are all saying, for years and years, we're not going to
Right. Yeah.
have enough inventory.
Well, the cost to bring things out of the ground puts it at a market value typically above affordability. And for it to be worth the builder's time and money and investment, they have to have a certain profit margin. And so I don't know how that happens. I don't know if it's tiny homes.
That's not helping us either. Because I don't know where that shows in the statistics with new home builds.
But that's a small percentage.
Yeah.
When you look at the overall percentage.
It is. It's a fairly small percentage, but I also understand we're actually seeing a lot of people, a lot of corporations that own property. That actually, in February 2012, that was the bottom of the market in Metro Atlanta. investors started coming in. The great thing about that was we didn't have to have appraisals because they didn't care about appraisals. They cared about cash flow. And so if you had 3 foreclosures in the neighborhood, that wasn't going to tank your value because they were going to look at what can I rent this for. That drew a lot of investment into the area, which is great, except for now those first-time home buyers don't have those homes to choose from anymore. And when they go to buy, they're still competing with investors that are paying cash for those properties, right? And investors with really, really deep pockets, not just the mom and pops that we're used to. All right, median of last list price. Again, we're at 100% in this area. Average of last original price is 98.4. Again, median is the middle number. This is the average of all the numbers. Median price per square foot, we're up to $203 per square foot. That is a better indicator than median price. You notice that median price was up 13.7%. Price per square foot's only up 4.6%, a little below 5%. And I'll get these slides to Alicia. Sorry, Leah. Yep. And I'll get these emailed out. And then median showings to pending. Again, we're at 11. So if you had more than 11 showings, the house should have already sold.